And we are back. We had an off week last week, no UFC, but we are back in the saddle. For my count, there are 11 straight events coming up. 11 straight weekends of UFC events. Should be fun. Should be a good time. There's some fun fights sprinkled out over the next 11 weeks. Obviously, it starts with this weekend's UFC Houston card, which is the primary focus of this live stream. But again, we talk any and everything UFC, any relevant news. Excuse me, I gotta clear my throat. UFC Houston this weekend, but obviously a lot of other big news coming out today. We got the return of Ronda Rousey. She's going up against Gina Carano. More of a legacy fight than anything. Obviously, we know that it doesn't really tell us who the best fighter, and again, this fight is taking place at 145 pounds. I believe that's the division that Gina Carano also used to fight in when she was active, whereas Rousey was more so of a 135er. So you can obviously see a little bit of the height discrepancy in favor of Carano in that face-off video that they dropped. So that's one of the pieces of news. The other piece of news, kind of on the back burner now. Obviously, there's not as much talk about it because it came out last week with Basharat and Almeida both getting cut from the UFC. So I know a lot of people have already shared their thoughts on that, but I haven't gotten the opportunity to yet. So, maybe I'll address that when we have a little bit of a lull in terms of the comments and such coming in. But again, if you guys are new to the stream, I usually babble on for the first 5 minutes or so, let the comments start to roll in, and then I'll start addressing whatever comments and questions that you guys have. But a decent amount to cover already, right? Solid UFC Houston card coming up. High stakes middleweight headliner with Anthony Hernandez and former champion Sean Strickland. Jeff Neal being propped up in a solid co-main event slot in his home state, and he has a good tango or partner to tango with Earl Schmedich. Obviously, Medich always bringing the violence. Never seen the scorecards. Got something at the back of my throat that I'm trying to get rid of. I'm not sure why it's there. Give me one more second. Let me just try to wash it out. I go 1 week without a fight and I forget how to talk, or my throat forgets how to produce saliva and all that stuff. And it gets your boy all choked up here. But yeah, Jeff Neal, Earl Schmedich, phenomenal fight there in the co-main event. Obviously going to bring a lot of violence and a lot of, I'm assuming some blood, maybe a big knockout as well. That should be a fun fight. Very excited for this card. Also, we got Cage Warriors 200 going down the morning of UFC Houston. Obviously, depending on where you're at in the world. Decent card there. I'll be dropping a Legacy Warriors podcast on Friday for that. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that, breaking down that card entirely for you guys. But then, getting set for the big UFC Houston card, which I will be doing a watch party for. So make sure you guys tune in for that. Now, normally I have that watch party as a public video, but I have the chat set as mainly as members only. So if you're not already a member, $2 a month. We do 2 live streams, 2 watch parties a month. But I also figured out that there is an ability to gift memberships, and I think I can only gift 5 or 10 memberships a month. And I think I may have already used them in the last one, but that's something I might do for each thing. Once we get a good chunk of guys in there, I'll just dish out some memberships so some more people can take part in the live chat. But yeah, I had a lot of fun in the last one. We were able to get a lot of new members in there, and we're starting to build a solid community. I see a lot of these other fight streams and watch parties. You got thousands and thousands of people in them, and obviously that's a great goal to have. But when you are one of those people watching the fights and want to take part in the chat, you're kind of being overlooked because of the 999 other people that are in the chat. So I don't mind having a little bit of a smaller community for these watch parties and making the chat members only so that I can give you guys your love and flowers there as well. All right. Let's see what the chat is already saying. We got a few guys already in here. My guy Klaus MMA saying Jocelyn Edwards is the lock. Ooh. If you know my style, I don't normally like making heavy chalk my lock of the night. The highest I'd be willing to go is minus 250. If there's something that I really like, maybe I'll go minus 275, minus 280. Excuse me. Right now, Jocelyn Edwards on FanDuel is sitting at minus 310. At Betway, she's sitting at minus 333. Let's see what she's sitting at on Bet Online. Bet Online is normally my go-to source of what the odds should technically be. I think they're one of the better bookies out there as well. Let's see. Jocelyn Edwards is sitting at minus 300 on the dot. So, one thing to take into consideration for that matchup, that is a rematch, right? That is a fight that's already taken place 2.5 years ago. I think it was Nora Cornell's first UFC fight. I could be off on that. But it was a, kind of close fight, maybe a bit of a controversial decision. The thing that was left in the eyes of the judges at the ending of each of those rounds was Cornell reversing position and getting off a few good shots, whereas Edwards was more so just looking to hold on to position and try to grind those spots out. I'm hoping we're going to see a little bit more of an aggressive version of her this time. Obviously, seeing her on a 3-fight winning streak now, all 3 finishes, we are seeing a little bit more aggression from her, which is good. But this time around, this will be a true test to see how far ahead that Edwards has gotten, and if she's really, much better than she was when she fought Cornell 2.5 years ago. I think she is. I think she gets the win. I'm just a little bit skeptical in terms of taking her at minus 300. If Cornell is able to reverse those positions again, if Cornell is able to keep this fight standing, maybe have some success there, she can make this fight a lot closer. But I think Edwards will get to her grappling. I think we'll see her be a little bit safer than she was than the first time they tangled, and I think she'll be able to secure those positions and maybe even sink in a submission. I believe her submission prop, as of this recording, is sitting at plus 750, which I think is a phenomenal line to take advantage of. We know she's grapple heavier now than she was earlier in her career, and I think that will produce another submission win for her. I hit her submission round 3 prop a couple fights back when she submitted Tamiris Vidal. Right now it's sitting at plus 2,500 round 3 submission for Jocelyn Edwards. So something to definitely take into consideration there as well. Mullins, Mick D, appreciate you stopping by. Yes, 11 straight fights. What's my favorite fight coming up in this schedule? It's hard to say anything other than Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira too, right? Like, that is a fun fight. These guys are finally, when they first fought each other, I think it was like 10 plus years ago, not as experienced, not as good as they are right now. Now they have championship experience. They're much more violent. They're clearly in their primes. Maybe Oliveira taking a little bit of a dip compared to Holloway, but still, very fun fight. How can that not be a violent fight? And rightfully so. You got the BMF title on the line for that card as well. Other UFC fights that intrigue me. Let me put on my nerd cap for a second here and give one to you guys. I might as well share my screen with you guys as well. Where's that at? There we go. Looking through the MMA Fight Archive here with you guys. Let me put my nerd cap on and see what other fight really sticks out to me during this upcoming schedule for the UFC. Chris Curtis versus Miktai Beck Orlby could be fun. Ooh, Balaji Oki versus Manuel Souza. That's a very fun fight. Andre Fili versus Jose Delgado. This card is March 14th, so when the UFC goes back to the Apex, Evloev versus Murphy, definitely worth a consideration for a fight to look forward to. Maybe not the most exciting fight, but in terms of stakes attached to it, this could easily be, number one contender fight. And it should be, right? If anybody other than Evloev or Murphy fight for the title or fight Volkanovski next, it's a travesty in my opinion. Page versus Patterson could be fun. Nathaniel Wood versus Losin Keita. That's a very fun fight. I'm interested in Parkin and Pinto. I've been bigger on Parkin more than other people. And Pinto's obviously really getting into his own as well. I don't know how I'm picking. I think I'd lean ever so slightly Parkin, but I think once I study that, it might change. Let's see what else. UFC Seattle, you got Adesanya versus Pyfer, March 28th. That matchup's not so intriguing to me. I get why Adesanya has to take that type of fight. Julian Rosa versus Lorraine Douglas should be fun. Let's see, nothing announced for UFC Macau yet. Oh. I seem to not be able to get my months correct. This Macau event should be further down the list. UFC Vegas 115. No headliner for that yet. And that's April 4th, so just under 2 months away. No headliner for that card yet. I wouldn't be surprised if they end up going with Jan Jidoba and Tabitha Ricci, considering that might be the biggest name fight on the card so far. Ruchala versus Delano is a fun fight. Jose Delano is a very, very fun fighter. Shabazian versus Iron Turtle should be fun. I'm very interested actually to see the odds on Rafael Estevam and Ethan Ewing. I know a lot of people are going to be big on Ewing because of him pulling off that upset against Malcolm Wellmaker, but Estevam is a completely different puzzle than Wellmaker. 327 Reyes versus Walker should be fun. Muzakana versus Costa. We're getting Costa finally locked in. So that's a very fun fight there, especially with him going back down to 185. Swanson versus Landwehr. In front of that Miami crowd, that's going to be absolute fire. If you're trying to find a fight to put in front of a crowd, that's the fight right there. That's a very fun MMA nerd fight. Kevin Holland versus Randy Brown is pretty fun too. They're starting to work out this UFC Ottawa card, which isn't, nothing crazy on it as of yet. And then there is April 25th is already announced. They don't have a date for it yet, but I heard that the rumored fight for that card is, or at least one of the rumored fights is going to be Norma Dumont versus Yana Santos. So, yeah, decent schedule coming up right now. But yeah, just glad to have the UFC back this weekend. Clausing is the Rousey and Carano fight, not AI. No, it is not, unfortunately. We're getting two fighters way past their prime, way past their fighting years. You know what? Let's see when the last time Gina Carano fought. Because I want to say she hasn't fought since like 2009, maybe early 2010s. And again, let's be honest. Yeah, 2009, I called it. Her last fight was against Chris Cyborg, where she got absolutely pummeled for 4 minutes and 59 seconds before the referee stepped in there. She was undefeated going into that matchup. But, the types of women she was facing and beating, not the highest of level. But yeah, August 2009, Cyborg versus Carano, the biggest women's fight at the time because the women hadn't come over to the UFC yet. And Carano, let's be honest. There's a reason there was a lot of hype on her. She was one of the prettier girls competing in MMA. She was undefeated until she went up against Cyborg. Skill-wise, nothing crazy, right? Rousey should be able to just judo her, get her to the ground and submit her. But the intriguing part of it is the size advantage of Carano. I just don't know how much it's going to play into this fight. And then you also have Rousey, who's going to be weighing in at 145 as well, right? So yeah, very, very weird fight there. I get it. We get why Netflix is doing it, right? Netflix did fucking Jake Paul against Mike Tyson, for God's sakes. It's just get familiar names and hope that they bring in enough numbers to justify paying them whatever the hell they're paying them. And apparently, Ronda went to Dana and said, hey, can we do the Carano fight with the UFC? And it didn't exactly work out. Let's see. I remember there was an issue in 2016, I think it was. Was it 2016 or 2014? There was like something that happened where like Dana sent a accidental text to Carano and the fight ended up falling through because she said like something bad, or he said something bad. Let me try to pull up what that was. Gina Carano, Dana White text. Yeah, this was 6 years ago. So back in 2020, Gina Carano tells Ariel Helwani that she was offered $1 million to face Ronda Rousey. She asked UFC brass for the time to build a camp for 6 months, and the following day, Carano says Dana White was talking about signing Carano to face Rousey, and she felt pressure. Carano then says that she was accidentally sent a nasty text from Dana White that was about her. He eventually apologized for it, and the Ronda fight never came to fruition. Yeah, that was a lot of what happened. He, I think it was a misdirected text or something like that. Very unfortunate that something that small could really mess it up. Oh, here it is. Back in 2015, Gina revealed she had a nice dinner with Dana White and Lorenzo Fertitta and was offered $1 million to fight Rousey, leaving stoked. But she says she asked for 6 months to step away from Hollywood, find a real gym, and build a proper team. Instead, Dana began speaking publicly about her signing. Pressure mounted, and then came a text that read, "This bitch isn't fucking us around." Gina replied, "I think they sent that text to the wrong person." Dana answered, "I don't think I did." That was their last exchange. Oh, hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. You would expect that from Dana, right? All right, let's get back to what you guys are saying here. My guy Sal was saying, 3 of you watching haven't hit thumbs up yet. I would appreciate it if you guys hit that thumbs up. Even more importantly, hit that subscribe if you haven't seen. I was looking at my analytics earlier today, and it seems that like 40 to 45% of viewers of my videos and podcasts are not subscribed. And if I'm closing in on 10,000 subscribers, getting, 2,000-3,000 views on these videos, and only 40% of those people are not subscribed, that would get me to my 10,000 subscriber mark pretty quickly. Seems like I'm clipping here. Let me try to turn my mic down just a smidge so I'm not blasting your ears, guys. But yeah, if you haven't subscribed already, please do. Simple one click. Also, subscribe to the Clips channel. Another thing that I started, with this new year, posting the individual fight breakdowns from the podcast on Thursdays. It kind of widens the net that I throw out there with this content, and I'm getting a lot of views over there as well on the Clips channel. But we need to see that turnover into subscribers as well. I'd love to hit that 1,000 mark this year, but I know that's going to be a long, hard road. Mullen saying, yeah, definitely Holloway needs to win. He should win that fight. If you guys remember how the first fight went, there wasn't too much to dissect from it. That one, weirdly, the first fight was in Saskatoon, which is so freaking weird that, a Hawaiian and a Brazilian headlining a fight night in Canada in the middle of buttfuck nowhere, right? And then it ended pretty anticlimactically with, I think Oliveira had some sort of stinger in his neck or his back or something like that, and he went down after a punch from Holloway. And I think it only lasted like 2.5 minutes, so very unfortunate how that one went down. Obviously, I doubt that's how this one's going to end. Excuse me. And that's back when I used to call Charles Oliveira more of a quitter. And I think he was back in the day, right? He was a guy that when the going gets tough, he would kind of just fold and look for the exit. But obviously, after COVID, he's really improved his overall game. He's really become a guy that's more violent. And he's the guy going out there and breaking dudes. So, Yeah, this should be a fantastic matchup. I think that's the first weekend of March, so we still got a few weeks before that fight takes place. Also, the rumor was that they were trying to get the flyweight title, Joshua Van, to be co-maining that card. We're less than 3 weeks away from that fight now. So if we haven't already gotten that announcement, I think that's not going to happen. We're supposed to get Joshua Van versus, I think Manel Kape was the guy that they were trying to push for, but that's obviously not happening now. So it seems like they're going to stick with Caio Bahayo and Renier de Ridder as the co-main event of that card, which is still not a bad fight. I know sentiment on Renier de Ridder is not the highest right now after that flop of a performance he had against Brendan Allen. Should be a fun fight still. Mullins saying, yeah, Lorraine Douglas, first since Contender Series. That is right. That fight with Julian Rosa will be his first since the Contender Series. And that's a guy that's really turned it around as well, right? Coming out and watching Douglas on the LFA, he was a guy that was kind of just hit and miss. He would win a few, lose a few, win a few, lose a few. Even as a loss to Isaac Thompson, who recently got signed to the UFC and came up short against Joe Anderson Brito. But he just turned the switch and he's just become an absolute killer, getting finishes, winning the LFA title, getting that crazy finish on the Contender Series as well, and now coming into the UFC. Really excited to see how far he can take it. I'm thinking that there's going to be some unwarranted hype on him. Unwarranted to a certain extent. Obviously, the run that he's on is very impressive and how he's been doing it. But once he starts fighting legitimate UFC competition, and Julian Rosa could absolutely be one of those guys that tests him, then I think we'll see the sentiment on Douglas try to start to fall a little bit. But he's still a very fun, very talented, very nasty fighter who I can't wait to see get into the UFC. Kloss MMA saying, like, subscribe, or get the fuck out. Yes. If I could put that comment up on the screen, I would. Appreciate you, Klaus. Chris Wilson, Happy New Year, my brother. Great betting card for us this weekend. I see lots of violence and stoppages. Happy New Year, first and foremost to you. I appreciate you stopping by as always. Yeah, you know what? Let's quickly see which fights could be stoppages. I'm going to go me just guessing first, and then we'll look at the odds here and see which fights are actually favored to finish inside the distance. So, going top to bottom. Strickland Hernandez, I expect to hit the scorecards. Neil Medic, inside the distance. So I'm just going to count the ones inside the distance, sorry. Ige Costa, I'm expecting that to go the distance. Spivak D'Elia, inside the distance. Smith Harrell, I'm going to say inside the distance. Close fight. Could go the distance, but I'm going to say inside the distance. Reese Pereira, that's a finish. Njokwani Leal, finish. Osborne Idris, I'm going to say scorecards. Korea Gurul, scorecards. Cornell Edwards, scorecards. Brahimai Soriano, scorecards, that's 6. Rola Bosniani, inside the distance. Sorry, I meant to say Brahimai Soriano, inside the distance. Leave it Del Valle. I think Del Valle finishes him. That's 8. And Miller Judice. I think Judice gets the finish. That's 9. So 9 out of the 14 fights finishing inside the distance. Now let's see what the odds say. All right, I'm going to go down from how BetOnline has it. So, Leal and Njokwani, minus 600 to not go the distance. Oh, wow. Osborne Idris, favored to go inside, to finish inside the distance, minus 125. So that's 2. Gurul Korea, favored to go the distance, plus 120 on the not to go distance. Cornell Edwards, plus 200 to finish inside the distance, so it won't. Let's see, Soriano Brahimai, minus 205, so that's 3 favored so far. Ro Labosniani, minus 180 to finish inside the distance, 4. Leave it Del Valle, minus 250 to finish inside the distance. That's 5. Oh. Judice Miller, minus 210 to finish inside the distance. That's 6. Harrell Smith. No fight doesn't go to decision odds on this one yet. But the under 1.5 is at plus 165. So I'm going to say that it's... You know what? Let's just count that one out since we don't actually have numbers on that yet. Strickland Hernandez, not to favored inside the distance, plus 115. Medic Neal, minus 650 to not hit the scorecards. That's 7. Ige Costa, this one's interesting, plus 190 to hit the scorecards. Oh, sorry, plus 190 to finish inside the distance. So that one doesn't count. Yeah, Spivak D'Elia got to be favorite. Minus 325 to finish inside the distance. That's 8. And then Pereira Reese, minus 325. So I kind of called it. 9 out of the... Well, we got 9 out of 13 because we don't have the Harrell and Smith fight odds for that one yet. So yeah, should be a violent fights is what my guy Chris Wilson is trying to say. Appreciate you stopping by, my friend. Class MMA saying Jordan Leavitt is the first openly gay man to fight in the UFC. Is that correct? I think he's just very flamboyant, right? I think he's just one of those guys that's fine with his sexuality and fine with his, being like twerking in the cage and all that stuff. So, yeah. I think maybe, I guess, what's his name? The guy that got caught up in the betting scandal. Jeff Molina. First bi fighter in the UFC, at least known, but that was even after he was in the UFC. So I'm not going to say we have the first openly gay UFC fighter yet. Other than females, right? There's a ton of lesbian fighters in the UFC. Dan the Man saying, I heard rumors that Van will face Tyra in the April numbered event. Okay. I would kind of rather see Cop versus Van. I feel like that one would be quite interesting. I think Tyra would obviously be more than deserving of a title fight as well, but considering the runs that these guys are on right now, I got to go with Cop. But I get it. You got Tyra that just finished Brandon Moreno in December, so that kind of makes sense. Class MMA saying Anthony Smith versus Chase Sherman in bare knuckle MMA. Is that fight actually put together? I know Smith is coming out of retirement for that game bred bare knuckle MMA tournament that's being put together. But is that the first fight? And I wouldn't even be surprised to see Chase Sherman win that fight. I was joking with one of my friends that, Anthony Smith coming out of retirement, probably going to get knocked out by some redneck that only trains once a week or something like that. But should be intriguing to see what kind of names Gamebred is able to put together for that tournament. I don't follow bare knuckle all that closely, so I'll be interested to see if any bare knuckle boxers come over to that. But yeah. Class MMA saying Medic versus Neal is guaranteed finish. Oh, yeah, for sure. If that reaches the 7th minute, I'd be surprised. Even if it reaches the 2nd round, I'd be surprised. I think we see vintage Neal there get the knockout. Chris Wilson saying Walking Trouble, Anti-Delia, and Hand of Steel, Jeff Neal. KO, 2-legged parlay. I can see it coming to fruition. I like it. I think they both win by knockout. There was a prop. My guy Close MMA saying 914 finishes would be sick. Yeah, I'd agree. There was one prop that really stood out to me that I was kind of looking at. Let me see if I can find it here for you guys. I'll obviously drop it during my best bet segment on Thursday. But since you guys are here for the live stream, let me see if I can share it with you guys. I just have to remind myself what it is. I already told you guys about Edwards by sub at plus 750. I don't know if I can find it. Ooh. Now, again, long shot, probably won't hit, but worth a thought and a consideration. Juliana Miller by submission at plus 1100. We know she's going to be attacking with the grappling, and if she can get the positions that she needs, she is a far superior BJJ specialist than Carly Judice. The issue is getting the fight to the ground. I think she's strong enough that she could potentially do it, but from what I've seen so far from Carly Judice, she's done a great job in terms of working on her grappling defense. Coming from a kickboxing background, training at a gym called Head Kicks MMA, we know that her striking is obviously very polished, obviously much better than what Juliana Miller does. We saw Miller obviously get finished by Luana Santos, but I think Miller has definitely gotten better than when she got finished by Santos. Changing up her gym before her last fight against Ivana Petrovic, going over to Washington, training with the Sick Jitsu guys, training with Rick Little. It seems like they've done a good job in terms of helping her get into the clinch a little bit easier, and then from there utilizing her double underhooks, her body lock, and then from there just utilizing her strength to just drag women to the ground or get to their back and look for submissions. There could be an opportunity here or there where Miller can take advantage of a clinch situation. Again, I don't think she wins, but if there is a hedge at all, I think Miller by submission at plus 1100 is definitely worth a consideration. Again, just be open-minded. That's all I'm trying to say. It's possible, but minus 750 on Judice, I wouldn't even parlay that either. I heard Judice's KO prop is minus 160. That's something I probably wouldn't even play either. I would pass on that fight completely, but I think I think Judice ends up getting the knockout, but definitely got to pay attention to that Miller submission prop. Plus 1100 is just crazy. Jean-Paul Labozniani by submission, plus 225. I thought we'd get a better line there. Excuse me. But I think Labozniani eventually submits Phil Rowe. Ramiz Brahimai by submission, plus 150. Jocelyn Edwards by submission, plus 750. I already told you guys about that earlier in the pod. Gurul by points, plus 475. Kind of a little bit of a long shot. I think Korea probably outstrikes him and wins by decision. But yeah, I really think Gurul's been underachieving since coming over to the UFC. Very unfortunate. A guy that I had a lot of high expectations for, but losing to a guy like Jesus Aguilar, if there's any wake-up call in Gurul's career, that's got to be the one. But, this might be the toughest fight that he's had in the UFC, and he's riding a 2-fight losing streak. So very unfortunate for Gurul to go up against Alden Creel now after having Ode Osborne, a fight he should have won. Won the first round on all 3 cards, got lazy in the second round, got clipped and put away. And then the Jesus Aguilar fight, just not enough urgency there. And now fighting an even tougher opponent. I hope the UFC keeps him around even if he loses this fight. But, Gurul doesn't really have much leverage in terms of being like, hey, keep me around. This is the one that's kind of scaring me a little bit. Alibi Idris going down to minus 125. He was like minus 155, minus 160 earlier in the week. A lot of love coming in on Ode Osborne. I think a lot of recency bias being sprinkled into that one with, Osborne obviously having a big performance against Ursig, even though he came up on the losing end, and then Idris fumbling the bag as a big favorite against Joseph Morales. I think we'll see the actual Idris this weekend, and you're getting a damn good line to fade Ode Osborne. And then crazy line movement as well on Chidi and Jaquani, plus 170 earlier this week. Now sits at plus 100. Absolutely crazy line movement there, but I still like him as a dog. Close MMA saying, I wish Miller would win because she's hotter, but I doubt that happens. I think she's one of those fighters on the OnlyFans tip. But she's a solid grappler. Good BJJ. She has that string bean strength as well. So, don't be surprised if she can finagle her way into the clinch and, mix things up a little bit. So definitely something to consider there. Chris Wilson saying Edwards sub. I like it. Neil KO. Walking Trouble KO. 3-legger. Love the Miller pick by sub 2, bro. Great prop. I'll be putting that in a 2-legger for sure. Again, it's not a lock by any means, but definitely something worth a consideration. But yeah, Edwards by sub, that must be a damn good parlay to put together, right? You got plus 750 on the Edwards sub. I think about plus 150 minus 140 on Neil KO, and then plus 150-ish on that Walking Trouble KO. Damn good parlay. Close MMA saying, why isn't Daniel Zellhuber actually good? Hilarious fucking comment there. Hilarious comment. I think he's good. I think he was maybe just a little bit overhyped coming off the Contender Series, right? He seemed like the next big thing for Mexican MMA. They've had Cain Velasquez. They've had, Cain kind of American more than Mexican, but still really riding into that Mexican pride and that brown pride. But Brandon Moreno and then Zellhuber, the kid has the looks, the kid had the fun striking fighting style, but then coming up short against Esteban Ribovics, very fun fight there, very entertaining fight, and then coming up short against a 39-year-old Michael Johnson, just not a good look. He's fighting Bobby Green next week. It's just tough to trust him. Again, he's at minus 500. I think that was roughly the line he was at against Michael Johnson. So, if anybody is going out there and parlaying Zellhuber at minus 500 again, you got to hang it up. you get, I'm sure they probably parlayed him against Esteban Ribovics. They probably parlayed him against Michael Johnson as well. You get burnt twice, you can't do it thrice, right? So that's a fight that I would stay off of. There's absolutely a world where Green's durability holds up and he ends up outboxing Zellhuber. He's fast, good counter striker. A lot of people might be reading into King Green going to a split against short notice UFC debutant Lance Gibson Jr. That should not have been a split. I don't know what that one judge was smoking, but that was not a close fight whatsoever, in my opinion. I thought Green clearly won that fight. Maybe you give round 2 to Gibson because he got the takedown, but I think the better shots were definitely coming from Green. And again, he's 39. That's kind of the tough part about this fight. Against the youngster Zellhuber, who seems to be setting up shop back down in Mexico City, training at the UFC PI, I believe, training alongside Brian Zurcher, high-level prospect who got knocked out on the Contender Series last season, but I think he'll be back and eventually get his own contract again. And then who's the other guy? Imanol Rodriguez. He's been training with him as well. So interested to see what a 2-fight losing streak will do to Zellhuber and if he can really unlock that potential that a lot of people expected out of him coming off the Contender Series. But yeah, I would not play him at all. Get him, let him have another 2 fights of wins, showing improvements, showing that he can actually win at this level, and then we'll consider playing him or parlaying him or something like that. But as of right now, I would not at all recommend playing him against Bobby Green next week. I've already started on next week's card. I'm getting ahead of schedule, guys. It's happening. I'm finally, it's Tuesday of fight week. I've already started researching next week's UFC Mexico card. I've already gone through about 3 fights there. I'm still waiting for the Cage Warriors odds to come out, which they have yet to come out. But they'll probably be out tomorrow. And at that point, I'll start researching Cage Warriors. And then again, like I said, I'll drop the Cage Warriors breakdown for you guys on Friday. Usually I try to get it out after the wins just to confirm, the matchups are actually correct. KSW is this weekend as well. I'll be skimming those odds and those lines. Sebastian Przyzbz, I don't know how to fucking pronounce that guy's name, but he's defending his title against Vitaly Yakimenko. Artur Shapatniak, fun fighter, big favorite against Kasper Koziorzewski. Lucas Trzaskowski is always fun to watch. Daniel Skibinski, always fun to watch. He's at minus 115 against David Kozmarski. Very interested to research that fight. Joseph Stumer is always a fun fighter. I like me some Boris Zukowski. Kind of underachieving, but still a fun style and fun fighter. Jordan Nandor on the card as well. Kasper Fornalski. Decent KSW card. Only 9 fights. But their timing is actually pretty good. Their pacing for their events is very fun. Unified this weekend as well in Toronto. Simon Marcus, former Glory kickboxer, fought Alex Pereira, fought Israel Adesanya, fought... there's another guy that he fought that's kind of escaping me at the moment. He's a plus 135 dog to Bobby Poulter. Should be a fun fight there. Luke Roberts, BJJ black belt back in the cage. Michael Imperato, former Contender Series alum, fighting on the card. Former Ultimate Fighter alum Michael Hill fighting former Ultimate Fighter alum Tom Theocaris. Firdaus Naimi, a solid Canadian prospect. He's minus 1,800. So some decent regional fights taking place this weekend. Fury FC this weekend as well. Justice Torres on the card against Carlos Calderon. Both guys who came up short on the Contender Series. Should be fun there. My nose is very itchy, by the way. I apologize for keep itching my nose. I'm sure you guys are noticing that. No booger sugar for you guy. Just an itchy nose. Dakota Hope is a fun prospect I like to keep an eye on. Dante Skiro versus Danilo Taylor. That's a fun fight. Eric Shelton against Eduardo Pena. Very fun fight there. Pena, high-level BJJ black belt. Could be on the Contender Series this year if he gets to win. Derek Campos, former Bellator fighter, lost back in December, I think it was. Retired in the cage. And then within 3 or 4 days accepted this fight against Richard Mayol. So the guy is just wanting to fight. Cody East, former UFC fighter, fighting Joel Faglier. Sam Kilmer, decent fighter as well, former champion, fighting Cameron Graves. That's a fun fight. And then Micah White going up against Royce Butler. So like I said, a lot of fun fights going down this weekend on top of the UFC card. Cage Warriors 200 is the one that I'm looking forward to most, but no odds out for that. Got another 20 minutes kicking in with you guys. Then I'm going to head out of here. Tomorrow, I'll be dropping my quick picks breakdown. So, going through the full UFC Houston card in 8 minutes or 9 minutes or so. Thursday, we got the best bets segment dropping. Always looking forward to dropping that one for you guys. Friday, we do the weigh-in recap after the weigh-ins finish up. And then also that Legacy Warriors podcast dropping that day. And then Saturday, Fight Day live chat, 1 p.m. Eastern, chilling with you guys for an hour, taking a little bit of a break, and then eventually coming back to do the watch party for the members as well. So hope to see you guys there as well. Please drop more comments or questions or anything that you guys got that we can cover before we head out of here. Let's see what other news is going on. Actually, this is a good time to talk about the Jailton Almeida and Javid Basharat releases. I'm not going anywhere, Chris Wilson, yet. I don't know why I recapped what I got coming up yet, but I'm still chilling for the next 15 or so minutes. But yeah, Basharat and Almeida being released. Now, I can kind of understand the Almeida release. He hasn't looked himself in the last 2 fights. The thing to take into consideration is people are like, oh, he's a boring fighter. All he does is grapple. He does that because when he's successful with it, he can be very dominant with it. But once he fights somebody that can stop the takedowns or force him to strike or keep him standing, that's where he starts to shell up and start becoming a, much less aggressive fighter. How he had to go 25 minutes with Derek Lewis is still beyond me. I don't think I've watched that fight yet either. I don't want to watch Jailton Almeida just lay on Derek Lewis for 25 minutes. But more often than not, he's able to get guys to the ground, submit them or finish them immediately, right? He did it against Alexander Romanov. He did it against Sergey Spivak. But as we've seen with Curtis Blades, as we saw with Rizvan Kuniev, how he was still the favorite in that fight is beyond me. I don't know how the hell people were betting Jailton Almeida against Rizvan Kuniev, against a Dagestani fighter who has better striking than him as well. It wasn't the greatest fight. It was a quite boring fight, let's be honest, but probably the easiest plus money all year that you could have gotten. Almeida just needs to trust his hands a little bit more. It seems like he throws with a lot of power, and that could definitely help him. But the one thing, or two things actually to take into consideration there. One, he was talking about going back down to 205 pounds. The reason he originally went to heavyweight after having his UFC debut at 205 pounds, even his Contender Series fight at 205 pounds, was because he didn't want to have to consistently diet. He didn't want to have, so long between fights. He didn't want to have too long of a layoff. And fighting at heavyweight gave him the freedom to just step in on short notice whenever he wanted, be more active, not have to worry about cutting weight. That's why he would always weigh in like 235, 240. He never really put that heavyweight on properly, and we saw it, play against him in the Curtis Blades fight, the Alexander Volkov fight, the Rizvan Kuniev fight. But at 205 pounds, his style could be a lot more effective. He is probably bigger and stronger than 90% of that division. And we see how good of a finisher he is once he gets fights to the ground. So I was kind of hoping that the UFC would give him another opportunity to fight at 205 pounds and be like, hey, if you bring the violence, we'll keep you around. If you don't, we're going to send you to the chopping block. And unfortunately for him, the UFC didn't give him that opportunity. Now, what the real kick in the nuts for him here is that he was given a new contract from the UFC to take that short notice fight against Rizvan Kuniev, and not giving him the benefit of the doubt that he's taking the fight on short notice, not giving him the benefit of the doubt to fight at 205 pounds once again, is a real shitty move by the UFC. I'm just, we know the UFC is the big bad corporation now. Everybody's like, oh, they don't pay the fighters enough, whatever the hell. I'm willing to kind of just turn a blind eye every now and then. But like that cutting of Jailton Almeida and not giving him the chance to fight at 205, really shitty. You got tied to Tuivasa on 5 straight losses, 6 straight losses, getting opportunities. And then he gives us the stinker that he had against Taliesin Teixeira, a very sloppy fight. You're going to start to see a change in terms of the UFC, in terms of bringing in the best fighters versus bringing in the most entertaining fighters. And that's where other promotions, maybe even like PFL, could get a little bit of a shift and be like, okay, we're going to take the best fighters in the world. And then there will finally be a legitimate conversation of whether PFL it might start getting better fighters than the UFC, because the UFC is so hung up on, just wanting guys to go out there and bang. I get it. You need to have a few of those fights on the card to make it entertaining. The casual fan's not going to stick around and be like, oh, I don't want to watch these guys try to wrestle each other. But it's mixed martial arts at the end of the day. If people want to watch striking, go fucking watch kickboxing, go watch boxing, go watch Muay Thai, go watch One, right? One is doing a phenomenal job with their Muay Thai roster. But mixed martial arts is all about all of the martial arts. It's about, seeing who the best guy is to put in there and who's going to be able to come out on top, utilizing whatever martial art that they need to. Maybe they can enforce more stand-ups. Maybe put a time limit on how long you can stay on top of a guy unless you're advancing positions or landing big damage. But that's a very shitty turn that the UFC has taken in a little bit. And we'll see if they're able to rebound from it. It's going to be hard to ever knock them from the top of the sport, right? It's always going to be about the UFC no matter what. But we'll see what kind of shift is coming now. Maybe they feel a little bit of pressure from Paramount. Paramount invested $7.7 billion in them for the next 7 years. Maybe they want bangers. And there are some fighters that can bring those bangers, but we have to know there's a trade-off that you're not going to get the best fighters against the best fighters anymore. And then there's Javid Basharat. A guy that was coming off of 2 losses. The unfortunate knockout loss that he suffered at the hands of Ricky Simon, which is obviously going to hinder a fighter's ability to compete at their best, especially trying to rebound off a loss like that. And then that first pro loss that he suffered against Ayman Zahabi. To cut him after, bouncing back from his losing streak, but even bouncing back after that loss, or after getting dropped by Yanni Vasquez the way that he did in the second round, that was a fun fight. Basharat did what he needed to do to win that fight, but he did face a lot of adversity and still managed to bounce back. I feel for him, man. I think Basharat is a good fighter. He's a fighter deserving of a ranking. He's a fighter, given the right path, probably could have even fought for a title. Excuse me. Now we have to hope that Farrod could do it, right? Maybe Farrod holds that Basharat name. Or maybe the UFC doesn't like Basharat's style either. To back Farrod a little bit here, especially with the performance that he had against Gene Matsumoto, close fight. I could see why some people might think that Matsumoto deserved to win that fight. But Farrod did fight a little bit more recklessly than he normally does. Farrod often goes for the takedowns right away, looks to grind his opponents out, but we saw him strike more, and he was throwing big heat against John Matsumoto. Maybe another fighter would have gone down from some of those big shots that Basharat landed. But Farrod was throwing heat. Farrod was not fighting as conservatively or as safe as we've seen him in the past. So I think Farrod's safe. Javid should have been as well, but unfortunately he got cut. So this, now is kind of where we're seeing a lot of fans, public, starting to question a lot of the cuts and releases that the UFC is making. I wonder who's going to be next where the people are like, hey, I don't know if you should have let go of that guy. I'm sure the PFL is just waiting under the UFC's trash bin and be like, who are you dropping next? We'll take Jailton Almeida. We need somebody. We need to bolster our heavyweight and light heavyweight division. We'll take Javid Basharat. We need to have some more fun in our bantamweight division. Now, where Almeida ends up next is the big question, right? I'm sure PFL will snatch him up. The out of left field kind of signing I hope we see is either KSW or Octagon. We saw Octagon take Martin Budai. Unfortunately, Budai loses in his return fight against Will Fleury for the heavyweight title. But I'd love to see Almeida take on Phil Defree. Now, Phil Defree is a... Oh, what's going on? My laptop is spazzing just a little bit. What is going on here? Oh, there we go. That was weird as hell. We're still live? We're still live. What the hell is going on? Check. That was very weird. I don't know if you guys can still see what's going on. Something is bugging real quick. What is happening? I can hear that you guys can hear me still, but you can't see the video anymore. That's very weird. Huh. Well, I apologize for the video not being there anymore. We only got like 5 minutes left, so I'm not going to waste too much time trying to figure out what the hell is going on. As long as you guys are getting audio, that's all that matters. Yeah, this is the first time I've run into issues with OBS like this. This is very weird. Anyway, like I was saying, I'm hoping that we get either KSW or Octagon snatch up Jailton Almeida. Phil Defree, like I said, a guy that was in the UFC before, didn't have the best run because he came in pretty young. He's 39 now, but he went, let's see what his UFC run was. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fights with the promotion, and he went 2-3. Wins over Rob Broughton and Ollie Thompson, and then losses to Stipe Miocic, Todd Duffy, and Matt Mitrione. And then he had a couple fights on the regional scene, and then went to KSW in April of 2018. And since then, he's been undefeated. He's won one. He fought immediately for the vacant KSW title. He went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 wins in KSW, undefeated with the promotion. So 13 title defenses, which is crazy at the heavyweight level, even facing some of the guys that he's faced, right? Obviously not UFC level guys anymore, but, Louis Enrique, former UFC fighter, Darko Stosic, former UFC fighter, Todd Duffy, former UFC fighter, Augusto Sakai, former UFC fighter, beat Darko Stosic again. And then he beat two tough strikers in his last two bouts. So throw Jailton Almeida in there. I would love to see how that fight plays out. I saw some people trying to say that that Almeida should sign with the PFL and fight Francis Ngannou. No. The only fight the PFL should make with Francis Ngannou right now is against Vadim Nemkov. Vadim Nemkov is more than deserving of that fight. It's the highest profile fight they could probably put together at this time. And he's the most talented heavyweight in the promotion, bar none. I think the best chance Francis had at getting another win in the PFL is if they were to have given him Denis Goltsov. But Goltsov obviously already lost to Corey Anderson now. That fight was at heavyweight, even though Anderson is a 205er. But Vadim Nemkov versus Francis Ngannou is the fight that should be put together. I'm still bugging that my video is not showing. Let me just see here. Yeah, still doesn't work. Weird. Oh. It's kind of back. I don't know what the hell is going on with my StreamYard. Whatever. We're out of here anyway. Appreciate all the love. Appreciate all the support. Appreciate most of you guys stopping by and watching the video. Watching the live stream. Again, we'll be back on the live stream on Friday. Saturday Fight Day live chat. And then obviously all the other content that's coming out throughout the week. Make sure you guys stay tuned for that. Hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Appreciate you guys stopping by. I'll catch you again later on in the week.